Good afternoon, good evening, good day, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today on AFRAA Skyconnect, the August 2026 edition. And today, my guest would be Mr. Dalmas Okendo, who is Head of Government Affairs at Kenya Airways, and also the chairman of the AFRAA Blocked Funds Task Force. Also on today's discussion is Mr. Abraham Osio, who is head of strategy and project management at the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS. In our discussion today, as you have been communicated to, we will be looking at airline funds repatriation from some of our African countries. In recent times, this has been a major issue, causing airlines a lot of headache and inconvenience. And though some work has been done and some relief has been received, but the issue just doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. So in our discussion today, we will want to look at what is ailing or what is causing the blocked funds. We would look also at how we can deal with the issues of the blocked funds. And then we would look at why are airlines not rather selling directly in Forex, but selling partly in local currency, knowing well that it will be difficult to repatriate? And we look at the role of the AFRAA Blocked Fund Task Force. And PAPS will help us because currently PAPS and AFRAA are working on a scheme to assist many of the airlines with block funds swiftly move their funds to their base, and PAPS will elaborate more on that. And then we look at what the long-term solutions could be, if there are any, to the menace of block funds. And as always, and as in previous sessions, I would then ask my guest to give me their final thoughts or final messages, so that if you haven't heard anything at all throughout the discussion, they will give you the one bit message that you need to take away from today's session. So thank you very much. As always, our session will be for 1 hour. And ladies and gentlemen, you would have the opportunity to participate in the discussion. So if you have questions or comments, please use our Q&A tab and post it there. At the appropriate time, I will look at it and post it to my guest, who would respond to you, time permitting. So without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would want to welcome my guest again, Mr. Dalmas Okendo and Mr. Abraham Osio, to the program, and to invite them one after the other to give us some brief introductions of themselves, starting with Mr. Dalmas Okendo. Thank you very much, Dalmas.
Thank you very much, Raphael and the AFRAA team, for having me. Dalmas Okendo is my name. I'm the Head of Government and Industry Affairs at Kenya Airways. My section is responsible for all the government relations, policy, regulatory, and the industry relations docket. Aside from that, I also chair the AFRAA Blocked Funds Task Force, as well as double as the vice chair of the AFRAA Aeropolitical Affairs Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dalmas. Mr. Abraham Osio, please can you just tell us briefly about yourself and PAPS?
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Raphael. And thank you for this good invitation from us. My name is Abraham Osio. I head strategy and project management in PAPS. I'll just speak briefly about what I do and then a bit of the organization. So within PAPS, its full name is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. My role focuses on strategy execution, project management, stakeholder engagement, and advancing modern payment and settlement solution across Africa. And more about PAPS, we are a centralized financial market infrastructure that was established to enable instant and secure and efficient cross-border payments across Africa using local currencies. This initiative was launched together with AFRAA Bank in collaboration with Africa Union and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So our main impact goals is actually to reduce the cost of doing cross-border transactions across Africa, majorly by removing the correspondent banking elements, increase speed of transactions, and facilitate inter-African trade. Thank you so much and pleasure to be here. Looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you so much, Abraham. And we are very glad to have you on board and to share with us some insights on what PAPS can do to assist African airlines. But before we get there, Dalmas, we say blocked funds, blocked funds. Can you tell us what are blocked funds? What constitute blocked funds? And how does this situation actually even arise in the first place? Because when a passenger buys a ticket, the money is given to the airline. So why is it blocked again? So can you give us some bit of background to this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raphael. The issue of blocked funds, first of all, is a very, very critical one. It is not new. It is a subject that has been with us for a while. And just to help our listeners understand, blocked funds are funds that are trapped in the countries in which the sale of tickets and other commercial services by airlines happen. That is to say that the funds are not necessarily trapped in the airline's nationality countries, but in the other countries where the airline operates to, the airline does its ticket sales and the sale of other services, including cargo operations. In terms of how funds get blocked in those countries, there are many issues that lead to the airline funds being trapped. Number one are regulatory restrictions or constraints within some of those countries, forex shortages within those countries, currency controls within those countries, challenges within the countries in terms of attracting foreign direct investments, weaknesses in national financial systems within the countries. All these factors, either singularly or in a combination, conspire to then lead to the funds of airlines being trapped in the different countries. Thank you.
So, how widespread is this problem? Is it in many countries, or is it limited to a few countries, or is it in a particular region, or it's across?
Raphael, that's a very important question. In terms of how big or how wide the challenge is, I would want to approach it from various dimensions. Number one is to look at the magnitude of the amounts that are trapped in different countries. over the years, for example, from 2023, we had $2.57 billion of airline revenues trapped in different countries. In 2024, the amounts slightly reduced to $1.78 billion. And in 2025, October, when IATA published its reports, we had $1.2 billion trapped in different countries. So you can imagine, those are colossal amounts that we are talking about. Second is in terms of the timelines within which these funds are trapped. From the last report of IATA, again, at any given time, you will have slightly over 53% of the blocked funds having been trapped in those countries for over 1 year. You're talking about 12 months plus, with airlines not able to get these monies out of those countries. And then in terms of the geographical spread of blocked funds, while least a bigger percentage of the funds are usually trapped within Africa and the Middle Eastern countries, statistics have shown that there are countries in the Americas, especially in North America. There are countries also in Asia where airline funds are blocked. But the biggest proportion, between 89 to 93% of the funds, are usually trapped in Africa and in the Middle Eastern countries. Thank you.
This is quite serious. So I will come to you, Abraham. Now, tell me, you are you work for PAPS, which is actually affiliated to African Export Import Bank, Afrexim Bank. Now, do you see this trend with other sectors, other trade sectors, or it is just a unique situation to airlines?
Raphael, thank you for the question. I will say this is not unique to the airline industry alone. So long as you're doing business in Africa, the macro conditions are the same. So at PAPS, we developed a product called the Pan-African Currency Marketplace, actually to help companies or corporates try to resolve this situation. And from the corporates that
Sorry,
we've
Abraham,
onboarded,
I want us to
yes,
discuss the PAPS a bit
yes,
later. I want us to discuss
yes,
the PAPS a bit later. But I just wanted to
yes.
know how widespread
I,
this
I'm
is
just landing.
in terms of.
Yes, I'm just landing, Raphael. I wanted to explain because from that platform, I can see data and insights that I want to share. So we've
Yes.
onboarded businesses across many sectors. We've onboarded airlines. Reinsurances are also suffering with this same problem that the airlines are suffering. Telcos cannot even pay dividends as well to their HQs. Telcos, reinsurance companies, manufacturing companies, technology companies. So essentially, it's affecting across industry, and it's not only particularly unique to the African airlines.
Yeah, but Abraham, tell me something. Now, these are businesses. They are not selling on credit. They sell and they receive their money. How come they are not able to move this money out? Just help my listeners understand. What is
Okay.
the problem?
Yes, and Dalmas had actually mentioned the problem to this. What happens is when you look at Africa, the central banks have different regimes in managing FX. Some are controlled, some are mixed, controlled and free, and some are free. In the countries where we've seen these problems persistent, where it is sort of fixed, by fixed meaning the FX rate is not allowed to float by itself. And such, you might find that companies are operating in these jurisdictions. When they want to repatriate their funds, they will go and source for liquidity. So that absence of liquidity is what's making this situation persist even further, because you might find that the official exchange rates have been quoted, for example, without naming any country, $1 is equals to 10 shillings, for example. But when a company goes to the commercial bank, they've done businesses and they've collected local currency. When they approach the commercial bank, they are not able to get that liquidity. Essentially, even when we speak with our banks, the liquidity is sitting within, there's some level of US dollar liquidity within the banks, but the struggle of the mismatch of how volume is moving, the true volume, and what they're seeing on the FX regime, that mismatch is actually causing people to hold on the liquidity because they're not able, the pricing is not allowing them to release liquidity very easily. So I will say that these conditions persist. Obviously, there are macro conditions that lead to central bank imposing these FX regimes within their countries. Some of them are debt distress. Some of them is import cover. So at times, even when we speak with most of these countries, you might find that the import cover is actually reserved for essential services. So at times when you come, when you want to repatriate your funds, the government looks at the essential services and in Africa, we are import heavy. We import a lot from outside Africa. And as such, those reserves are actually held on to bring in if it's food, if it's oil. So they prioritize that because they're the lifeline of the economy to some extent. So that's the biggest, from the insights that we see internally, that's the biggest problem. And that mismatch of the price identification of what's the actual true price of this currency to this currency. That's what's bringing all these problems.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So Dalmas, but
Raphael,
I mean,
sorry,
if
can
it
I?
is airlines money, if it's airlines money that is locked up in some country, the money is still for the airline. Anytime they release it, you get your money. Why the fuss?
Raphael, airlines do not operate in an island within these countries. We operate within an ecosystem that has so many other players. Critical within the context of our discussion is the regulators within those countries. Airlines cannot just fly in and fly out with their monies. They have to go through processes, procedures before they can get their money out of those countries. Some of those procedures and processes take quite a bit of time. You will do paperwork for more than a month or two for you to be able to repatriate anything from some of the countries. Part of that paperwork also involves costs. There are jurisdictions, for example, where any amount that you seek to repatriate, in as much as it is your revenue, you still have to have your accounts audited by auditors appointed by the central banks of those countries. And remember, you are still doing it at your cost or at the cost of the airline. And of course, beyond that, you also have the regulatory controls. Like my colleague Osio mentioned, there are times when the little available forex is prioritized for other sectors and not aviation. So in such cases, you will see your money is in your accounts in commercial banks in those countries, but you are not able to move that money because the hard currencies are set aside or ring-fenced for what he called the priority sectors. That can be health, that can be oil and gas, that can be defense and many other sectors, and not aviation. So that is the reason, part of the reason for the fuss.
So, but it is the airline's money nonetheless. And if it's in the other country, why doesn't the airline just invest it in that country? Why do you want to take it out?
Raphael, there are many reasons why airlines would want to take out this money. Number one is that a lot of the expenses and the payments from airlines are done from their nationality countries, because that is where a lot of the agreements, a lot of the contracts are done from. Usually in the countries of operations where the funds are blocked, there will be not so many services, not so many contracts that can be offset within those countries. Things like, in some cases, fuel, catering, maintenance, and other contracts within those countries can be serviced within the countries. But even then, you will still have some surplus that is to be repatriated to the nationality countries for other expenses, other costs, even for expansion of the business. You know, if you want to bring in new fleets, if you want to invest in setting up new routes to expand connectivity, you organize all that from your nationality or from your head offices. And that is why it is important that airlines are allowed to bring back those resources.
Okay, thanks so much for that clarification. And I also think that within the airline bilateral air services agreements that they do sign with the states, if my memory serves me right, there's always a clause in that bilateral air services agreement that mandates the state to ensure that it allows the airlines to be able to repatriate their revenues to their headquarters or their home bases. You know, so with this notwithstanding, we still have challenges. We're still not giving it as a priority. Abraham, why would that be? Because in the bilateral air services agreement that airline signs with that the states sign, the two countries from which the airline is operating to the other sign, there's always this provision that no, the state must ensure that airlines are able to move their funds out of the country. So how can you say, I mean, you have such an agreement, and yet the fund repatriation is not considered one of the priority sectors? Why?
Raphael, I will not be able to speak with certainty on this, but maybe to offer my from where I sit and so and the people on the call know this. I think this problem when the government enters into these contracts, no one envisions the economy to suffer in terms of currency devaluation or lack of FX or high debt distress. When all factors are held equal, I believe that each country would like to honor the agreements that they sign with the airline industry. However, in Africa, when you deal with currency and you speak with some investors, you'll find they're calling Africa currency exotic because of the high level of volatility. Now, this volatility are brought by debt distress or civil conflicts, so many things that riddle our continent, and some of them are not that you can foresee them. At some point, for example, I'll say this, at some point, 2-3 years ago, Kenya faced the same issue whereby we were undergoing a serious devaluation. It was actually very hard to get FX, but the country also turned around. So I do believe that it's not that they're not reprioritizing the airline industry, but in some countries, maybe, and you can group countries. There are countries where the FX regime is tightly controlled and they like it that way. There are countries where it is a managed float regime, and there are countries where it's free. On the managed float regime, it depends on the situation. If the import cover is under distress or they have a high debt distress, that's why they reach out to a multilateral bank such as AFRAA Bank or World Bank or IMF to try and help them in the economic recovery. So for me, I wouldn't fault anyone. It's just that the reality in operating in Africa is very different, and things happen. Uh, Africa is not one market, and the airlines know this. Each market has its own nuances. Some markets can go very, very deep. Some markets also can go deep and turn around. So I don't know whether I've answered you, but in my small attempt as a layman and not as an economist,
you,
that's what I see
you have.
happening. Yeah.
You have.
Raphael, if you allow me.
I appreciate that. I don't know whether Thomas wants to say something on this
Yes.
aspect. Yeah.
Raphael, the question of the bilateral air service agreements is a very interesting one for me because that is basically among the things that I deal with at Kenya Airways on a day-to-day basis. And I can tell you for free that the architects of the international aviation system and those who crafted standard air service arrangements anticipated situations where, airlines will operate across borders. Airlines will operate internationally. And if that be so, then they will also need to repatriate the resources that they make in those other countries. And therefore, it is true that there is a standard clause in almost every air service agreement that requires every state party to an agreement to facilitate seamlessly and in real time the repatriation of airline proceeds from their countries. And if only, I want to believe that even when that provision was provided for the air service agreements, everyone knew that the economic situations in countries will change. And they still provided for the facilitation of the airlines. So if only the governments can adhere to those provisions, irrespective of the conditions, because those conditions will always remain to be dynamic. If they will only adhere to those provisions and facilitate airlines would be able to play their role in the development of the global economy. They will be able to play their role in moving tourists, moving goods, facilitating trade, creating employment, and so on.
Okay, thanks for that. I mean, very interesting. But I was just wondering. I mean, so if the countries know they will not have enough forex to allow airlines or other businesses to move their funds out, why don't they allow businesses to sell in the currency of their choice? Abraham, would you think they should not do that?
Well, let me start with examples. We all know that in DRC they operate a dual currency, and so there are some countries where you will be, for example, Zimbabwe as well. You will be able to operate with and preferably sell in dollar, just to be direct to you, Raphael, other than the local currency. I think there are situations and countries, depending on their vision on how they want to manage their monetary policy, that will allow them to do that. However, I do believe that the preference is to strengthen as Africans, their own local currency, because their local currency is more sovereign than relying on the dollar or any hard currency. So in that sense, you'll find that especially in places when in countries when the inflation is rising at a very high rate, you'll find that not only airlines, businesses would want to sell in another hard currency rather than the local currency. But that way, actually, we are just locking Africa into someone else's sovereignty. So you will find that even as part of what we do actually at Afrexim Bank, we want to actually strengthen um, the sovereignty of African nations. And strengthening the local currencies is a key part of improving the economy for Africa. Because you look like the currency such as Rand, South African Rand, it's very, very strong and easily acceptable across multiple countries across Africa. So for me, the question will be, even if it's to allow um, other a country to sell in another currency, how then do we ensure as Africans, because I believe I'm speaking to the African Airlines Association, how then do we ensure that even as you're selling in another currency, most probably, how then can we even use a strong currency such as the rand? Or seemingly, what you're also seeing is people are tending to use Kenya shillings also as a reserve currency, or the ZOF or the ZAF, depending. However, those two last currencies I've mentioned also have very tight controls. But how then do we debuckle the continent from foreign West currency? So for me, it's not a question of being allowed to sell in, in a foreign currency. Is what can the airline industry do to support the local currency within Africa?
Thank you. Thomas, I see you itching to say something on this one as
Yes,
well. What is
Raphael,
it?
just two things. Aside from issues of sovereignty, we also have those very strong nationalistic feelings about our currencies. And you know, a lot of people would really want to use their currencies. But where a country minimally allows dual currencies, both local and the hard currencies, the issue is the availability of the hard currencies, and especially to the local population. Because remember, aviation is not just for the high class or the rich. Aviation is supposed to serve everybody in all of these countries. So how then do you make these hard currencies available within those countries? But then the other thing, Raphael, that we've also noted within the blocked fund task force is that even when you sell using local currencies, the entities providing services to you as an airline would still want their contracts denominated in the hard currencies. Instead of going for their own local currencies, they insist on the hard currencies. Remember, you're not able to move out the hard currencies, but you are forced, instead of paying using the local currencies, those service providers, be it ground handlers, be it catering service providers, they would still insist that you pay them in the hard currencies. And I think that is something that we really need to think about. If it is a question of promoting local currencies, then get all the local services paid for in local currencies. That will help in reducing the airline's exposure with blocked funds. Raphael, you could be speaking in mute, eh? Can't hear you.
Sorry. I was just saying that why wouldn't the states insist that service providers, at least local service providers to the airlines, accept the local currency? Because much of their expenses would be in local currency anyway. And in any case, the airlines don't have the forex. Are they prepared to wait until when the government pays the airlines forex for the airlines to pay them in forex?
Remember, the contract is between the airline and the local service provider. It is not with the government. The local service providers, of course, will expect to be paid as per the terms of the contract. And when you are not able to pay that, of course, they will bring in the government agencies to arbitrate. But I think, Raphael, it also goes back to what Abraham mentioned earlier. The question of currency volatility. A lot of our currencies in Africa are very volatile. One of the losses that we suffer big time within the aviation industry are losses resulting from currency depreciation or devaluation. Anytime the currency is devalued, and this happens often in a number of African countries, we count our losses. And I think it is for the same reason that even those local service providers would like to trade in currencies that are kind of immunized from the massive devaluations that we see with a lot of the African currencies.
Okay, because I can get the sense of why they would want the foreign currency, because the local currency can just lose value, and then you incur a lot of losses. Then airlines really lose a lot of money from time to time as a result of this. The earlier they move their money out, the better. But now they cannot do so. So I understand an AFRAA formed the AFRAA Block Fund Task Force. Now, considering the situation, the picture we have painted, now what is this task force intended to achieve if the states don't have the money? How can we make progress? Dalmas?
Thank you very much, Raphael. One of the things that AFRAA does very well is to identify the challenges that are faced by its member airlines and, initiate mechanisms that would help in mitigating those challenges. And the AFRAA Blocked Funds Task Force is one of those initiatives of the members and the Secretariat of AFRAA. And first of all, the membership of the task force is open to all the AFRAA airline members. Second, in terms of what the task force does, number one is to bring these members together to share, to learn from each other, to understand, the diversities of, the challenges that they face in terms of repatriation, and then organize ourselves to work together to lobby, to advocate for ease of repatriation of funds. The task force has gone out, visited different countries, met with the government representatives of those countries, from the central banks, from the ministries of transport, the national treasuries, just to discuss on how those governments can facilitate the airlines to repatriate their resources. It is also a platform where we look at good practice and how to then scale up some of those good practices. And one of the good practices that emerged is that beyond, pushing governments to facilitate the repatriation, it is also possible for airlines and other businesses to also enter into swap arrangements, you know, that would facilitate repatriation of funds. Of course, as beyond the good practice, we also look at some of the solutions that the private sector is coming up with, and one of them is really the entity that is represented by my colleague Abraham, the issue of PAPS, the Pan-African Payment Settlement Solutions. Once we identify these solutions, and it is not the we present it to the members. We invite the owners of the solution to come and speak to the members, share information about the solution and how the airlines can tap into that. And I'm happy to report that members of AFRAA are taking advantage of some of these solutions to ease their repatriation burdens. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. So this body, the task force, is doing quite an incredible job sharing information, engaging with states and state entities, and advocating for release of funds. I hope they're making some successes.
There have been successes, Raphael, and I'll give the example of Nigeria. In 2023, Nigeria is one of the countries that was actually leading in terms of the exposure, the magnitude of blocked funds in Nigeria. It was almost hitting $1 billion. But with the effort of the task force and other like-minded organizations like the International Air Transport Association, within no time, Nigeria significantly reduced the amount of blocked funds in the country. Right now, if you look at the list of exposure countries, you will see that Nigeria is not even listed. There are other countries where we've also seen a very huge decrease in the amounts of blocked funds as a result of the efforts of the task force.
Thank you. Allow me at this point to congratulate the task force, and also to a big congratulations to the government and people of Nigeria for actually leading by releasing all airline block funds. This is very impressive, and this is an example we would want other countries that are still holding airline block funds to emulate. I am told that currently nearly 800 million of airline funds are still blocked out there. And so one of the things that the task force is working on is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. So Abraham, tell me, what is this system and how can this help airlines get their monies quickly? And where were you all these years?
Thank you so much, Raphael. And I want to really thank Delmas and the task force for the support they've given us. And just to say that when PAPS was established, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, we were removing the aspect of correspondent bank to do instant transfers. But through actually Kenya Airways and AFRAA, we were able now to discover this pertinent issue we're discussing today. And we went back to think about how then can we help solve this problem. So within PAPS, we developed a product called the African Currency Marketplace. It's actually a swap mechanism that allows any corporate to swap African currency to African currency. So this arrangement allows for corporates to exchange local currencies. It's only reserved. We do not do any hard currency. We are solving an African problem for Africans. So the platform allows a corporate for example, in Kenya or Nigeria to swap. So a corporate in Kenya who's operating in Nigeria has sold their tickets or has sold sodas and they've collected Naira and they want to repatriate their dividends or working capital back to their home country. We are able to do a swap arrangement with a corporate in Kenya that's headquartered in Nigeria, who's selling in Kenya shillings and want naira. So the platform is able to match corporates that are looking for liquidity within the continent to ease the burden for our central banks, because we do know that at times this burden on import cover and trying to essentially prioritize some sectors that are deemed essential to the economy. We remove that headache from the regulators and say, okay, come to this platform with your demand and swap currency, so that you are able now to get or repatriate your funds into your preferred currency, or alternatively into your home currency or home country. So it's an order book platform where you come with an order. For example, it's basically just saying, okay, I want to exchange, it's barter trade. I want to exchange this currency for this currency at this rate.
Oh, okay. No, this is interesting, and I think I like the solution. I mean, because I don't think an airline will be operating out of its own country into another country and would say, no, I don't want my payment in my home base country. I'm sure you would rather have it on your home base country than have it in another country in a currency that you cannot easily make use of. So I think this is an excellent solution, and probably could actually help us solve the problem speedily and get airlines to get out of this. So Dalmas, would you say this is actually work in progress, or there's some activities that have really gone through pass already, and others are in the pipeline?
Raphael, first of all, allow me to also, appreciate PAPS, represented by Abraham here. We have always talked about African solutions, and I think this is one of them. It is not just an African solution to, what many people have, always perceived to be an African problem. This is an African solution to a global problem. Because like I mentioned, the challenge of airline blocked funds is not just African. There are other jurisdictions, other continents where airline funds are blocked, and they have, reason to borrow this very profound solution from Africa. But that said, Raphael, PAPS is just a go-between. PAPS is not the default position that that every airline wanted. The default position is where governments facilitate the airlines directly, as per the provisions of the air service agreements, to repatriate their funds in real time and seamlessly, without too much of the administrative and bureaucratic procedures that we see in the countries. If that were to be achieved, we will not actually need, go-betweens like PAPS. But PAPS is there, and the other solutions are there to bridge that gap that currently or presently exists. What we want is a situation where, the spirit and the word of the provisions of the bilateral service agreements are adhered to, and the airlines are facilitated. Remember, every solution comes with a cost, no matter how little that cost is. And for now, the cost of solutions like PAPS are still borne by the airlines. They still eat into the little revenues that airlines make in those different countries. And that is not that is not something that that we can just easily wish away. For the blocked funds task force, there is still so much to be done. We are seeing new entrants into, the blocked funds countries matrix. Countries like Algeria are now topping the list in terms of blocked funds, and that means more work for the task force. We have to reach out to the government and the agencies within countries like Algeria, Mozambique, and hold the same kind of discussions that we have had with the others like Malawi, Burundi, Nigeria, to facilitate the movement of airline resources.
Raphael, I wanted to chip in to something Dalmas has said, and just
go ahead.
point the future of what we are building.
Go ahead.
Just to mention, and thank you so much, Dalmas. We understand that we are offering a temporary solution to the industry. However, our biggest impact will actually be to sunset this product, because we want to create a situation where you can go to your bank actually and say, I have these blocked funds, and say, I have this Malawian kwacha I want to send to Kenya shillings. Go and just issue an instruction. And within an instant, you're able to get Kenya shillings in your local account. So in this process that we are doing, we're actually trying to discover, when PAPS was built, it was built for instant payment system, and to replace the correspondent banking and the SWIFTs of this nation, where you also have to rely on hard currency to do a SWIFT transfer. So let me just give an insight. Over last year, actually, thanks to AFRAA, we were able to help airline industry, only the airline industry, to repatriate about $120 million. When it came to manufacturing, we did about $150 million. But we do understand that the cost is a little bit high, and it's because of the price discovery. What we actually even speaking to with our central banks is we want for a price discovery where actually you can easily change without referencing even the dollar. You can easily change African currency to an African currency, because even today, when we do that pairing, the pairing on the background references one hard currency, because that's the unit of harmonization across Africa. But the vision of actually PAPS is to work together with the central banks to develop something called a unit of account. That unit of account is not necessarily a currency, but it's just a unit of saying, if I was to exchange Naira to Egyptian pounds, what will that be? And so that now change this issue of always looking for hard currency or referring to the hard currency will disappear. So our solution, especially on the currency marketplace, is a temporary one where we are discovering price and exchangeability of the different African currencies. Within no time, we'll be able to sunset this African marketplace, and these instructions will be issued actually from your commercial banks, because we do work with, on our instant payment system, we do work with commercial banks who offer these services to customers and to corporates like Kenya Airways here. So that's our global vision, and we truly are working towards, from the data we are seeing, we've been able to compile. On our instant payment system today, however, it cannot be used to repatriate because the block funds are bulk volumes. On our instant payment today, we've been able to do about 40 currency pairs every month. So we are able to tell, how does Kenya shillings speak to Egyptian pound? How does Moroccan dirham speak to South African rand? So within no time, even these blocked funds, maybe now the story will change. As soon as you earn your revenue, instead of accumulating, you go into a commercial bank, issue instruction, and it will be fulfilled. So that's the vision we are building. However, we've started from somewhere. I just wanted to put that into context. Yeah.
That's very good. I mean, also to give you also the aspirations of where you want to take us as Africa into the future. That's very very interesting. Now let me take. I've seen a question from our audience by Fred Juma. And Fred says, to better understand the scale of this issue, could you share the statistics on the magnitude of block funds? For example, what percentage of airlines' total revenue or cash flows are being blocked in documented cases? And are there examples of specific airlines or countries? Afraid Dalmas earlier on did indicate that in 2023, there were about 2.6 billion of air funds blocked globally. And in 2024, this came down a bit to 1.78. And just last year, it further went down to about $1.2 billion. What I can inform you is that as at now, about $768 million of those funds are blocked in Africa, in about 14 African countries, to actually be specific. Unfortunately, I would not want to mention the names of the countries because we are engaged with them at different levels of negotiations, trying to actually have them release these funds. But that is the bit of the statistics that I can give to you. And the airlines that are impacted are largely all the airlines, both African airlines and non-African airlines flying into the affected countries, actually have funds blocked to a large extent. Thank you very much for that question. If you have any further questions, bring them in. Now, for Dalmas and Abraham, I want us to go to our last segment where I intend to get you the long-term view, long-term solution to block funds. What should we do to actually fix the problem permanently? I heard from Abraham where they want to push perhaps to a point where we would have like a single convertible unit, you know, and depending on which country you are, it's easier to convert the money. Now, but apart from that, are there other ways we think we can permanently solve this? Let me start with Dalmas, then I come to the banker.
Raphael, there are definitely things that need to be done for us to sustainably address the challenge of blocked funds. And they are not they are not rocket science. There's the same things that we've been talking about over and over again, and very much within the abilities of all these governments to really implement. Number one, governments should free up markets and allow for sale of tickets and other airline commercial services in both local and hard currencies. Number two, and which I already mentioned, the government should streamline the administrative processes and eliminate all unnecessary bureaucracies that hurdle the repatriation of airline proceeds. Right now, there are bureaucracies everywhere, and which take a lot of time to navigate and a lot of resources again to navigate. Number three is for governments to just adhere to the letter and spirit of the air service agreements that they sign. You know, even beyond the air service agreements, if you look at the spirit of the Yamoussoukro decision and the single air transport market that implements the YD, it prioritizes, you know, the facilitation of airlines to move their resources seamlessly and easily. And then, of course, when you go to most markets, you are told they are priority sectors. Aviation is not considered a priority sector. Why is aviation not considered a priority sector? Do we really think about the place and the role of aviation within the global economy? Even when you talk about health, health cannot function devoid of aviation. I remember during COVID, if there is one sector that kept, nations alive and healthy beyond COVID, it was aviation, because we had to move around delivering, the medicines and all the other things that people needed to keep healthy and stay alive. So government should just prioritize aviation. Aviation it's a powerful economic engine that no sector of any economy can really thrive without.
I can see that Dalmas is already in his advocacy mood at this point in time. Thank you very much. And then government ought to do what it ought to do. Yeah. So now let me come to you, Abraham, and for your thoughts going forward. How do we deal with this menace of block funds? How can we, very briefly? Our time is almost up. Then I'll take your
very briefly.
Your point.
And for me, maybe I'll not speak about the airline industry, but from a macro perspective, to tackle the problem of liquidity is, as Africans, we need to trade with one another, first of all, so that as you're trading with one another and being able to accept each other's currency, that in itself will reduce the dependency on hard currency. Secondly, I think the airlines can play a lot to this. How then do we bring liquidity into our countries? So those hard currency, as you're flying in the global West, bringing tourists, the way Dalmas has said, these tourists also bring in their hard dollars to spend in our countries. So for me, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it requires different elements. I had mentioned the ability to develop a unit of account where we can, if we don't want to easily trade with our own currencies, how then do we develop a unit of account so that the currencies can speak to one another? So from a macro perspective, I think those ones can help. And then lastly, from the central banking space, how then can they ease capital and exchange controls to allow dividend repatriation so that's just some high-level thoughts that can solve these solutions permanently.
Okay. So thank you so much. Before I get your final comments, now there's an attendee. It says anonymous. So he's saying a very interesting perspective. He believes that having a common denominator in the form of an African Associate Aviation Bank, which will receive all payment requests for processing, it could be a start without breaching regulations. But you see, where do you locate this bank and how do you get the funds into that account? So that brings me to my other point, which I would want my guests as well as my listeners to ponder about. We've been talking about a single African currency. And each of the African sub-regions have been talking about a single currency within their sub-regions. Where are we with that? Aren't those the closest solution to eliminating block funds? If we have our own currency, just like how the Europeans have the euro, then we do not have this problem anymore. We spend the same money everywhere. But that is just from me. So now, Dalmas, your parting shot. What is your what can you do you want us to take away from this session in just about 30 seconds? Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. About the single currency, we have been talking about the single African passport forever and ever. and it has not come to fruition. So currency will be another thing. But let me say, by way of parting, Raphael, that a lot of the beautiful wishes and aspirations of Africa, as contained in the Agenda 2063, when you talk about YD, when you talk about the single African air transport market, when you talk about the continental free trade area and everything, you need airlines to be able to actualize a lot of these aspirations. You need airlines to connect to every corner of Africa, take people, take goods, take services to every corner of Africa. And that is only possible when airlines are facilitated to move their resources with ease and make the necessary investments to make it a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, Abraham, your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, I know the blocked funds are not only typical to the airlines industry. It cuts across many sectors in Africa. I think there are temporary solutions that we can use on the interim, but there are multilateral organizations such as Afreximbank who are actually working behind the scenes, doing a lot of research to certainly lobby, even over and above what the AFRAA is doing, to lobby to ease the burden for all investors across the continent, because we believe in growing the GDP of the economy. So in the meantime, as we work towards that grand vision, as Dalmas has mentioned, the Vision 2063, there are temporary solutions that can ease the burden available to use. And yeah, that's it, Raphael.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure Papa Atumani, I'm sure you got your response. He wanted to know whether the block fund issue was specific to airlines or it cuts across economic sectors. And just as Abraham said, it cuts across the board, not only airlines. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we drop the curtain on our Skyconnect discussions this day. And I would want, on behalf of AFRAA and all of us, to say a big thank you to Mr. Abraham Asio from PAPS and Mr. Delmas Okendo from Kenya Airways for taking time off their busy schedule to attend the program and educate, inform, and sensitize us about this highly, highly important subject in the aviation industry. Until we meet in the first week of September on the same platform on another topic, I wish you all the best and have a nice afternoon and the rest of the week. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Raphael.